Welcome to another episode of Soap Thing Thoughts. Joining me today is Chad Murphy of CD Shavin. Welcome to the Soap Thing Project. What's going on, man?
Hey man, thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on your channel. Kind of a big fan, so thanks for having me.
In the backdrop, looks like you got some snow. You said you're in New Hampshire. What do you do for a living, Chad Murphy?
Well, I am. We got some snow coming down a little bit today. Nothing crazy, but kind of in an active weather pattern here. I'm actually a police dispatcher. I dispatch for police and fire and EMS 911 type of thing. That's I've been doing that for 25 years for our local sheriff's department here, and I have a law enforcement background on top of that, but that's what I do. That's my thing. So
Very nice, very nice. Good stuff. I've been doing jet fuel supply in the Air Force for about the last 11 years, and so that's been keeping me busy here, there, and everywhere.
yeah.
Currently, I'm stationed out in Incirlik Air Base in Turkey,
Hmm.
so we weren't having too much to do until that earthquake hit, and then we were really busy for quite a while.
Yeah, I was
So,
gonna say you must be pretty rocking and rolling out there. How did you find yourself how did you find yourself out in Turkey? Do they have different places they stage people, or?
well, in the Air Force, you can kind of, if you're overseas, there's like controlled tours where you'll be in
Right.
like some of the long tours are places like England or Germany or Italy or Japan. I'm on what's called a short tour, which is only a 12-month tour. And those are places like
Okay.
Turkey and Spain and South Korea and places like that. So it's just kind of a rotation. You spend some time in the
Hmm.
States, and then after you've been sitting there for a little too long, your name comes up at the top of the pile as time to go, and then they rotate you.
Oh, and
And
you've been
then
doing that for how long?
I've been in the Air Force for 11 years. This is actually my second time being stationed at Turkey, and I've been stationed in South Dakota and then Southwest Illinois over by St. Louis.
Right.
In between South Dakota and Illinois, I was in Turkey the first time. Spent 5 years in South Dakota. Went here for 15 months. Went to Scott Air Force Base in Southwest Illinois for 5 years, and then I'm here for another double tour. I'm here for 2 years. So,
Wow. Wow. Well, I thank you for your service.
yeah,
I
thanks. I
appreciate it.
appreciate it, man. So real quick, I have this generic question that I ask everybody who's a YouTuber. How did you end up YouTubing wet shaving videos? How did that get started?
Well, it's kind of a long story, sort of. I'll keep it short as I can for you. So I had gotten into wet shaving on my own without, and I had watched various YouTube videos. This was a while ago. We're talking probably 6, 7 years ago now. And there were some people at work who I was telling about it and said, "Look, the guy was complaining because he hated shaving." And I said, "Well, yeah, I really have this way to do it that really works well, and I'd highly recommend it. And this is what it is." And I talked about making a soap, and I'm sorry, making a lather using a soap, and so I convinced him to buy one. And I think his first purchase, I think it was Razor Rock actually, and so I told him how to do it, how to make the lather, basically. And he came to me the next day, says, "Well, I did what you said. I filled up the puck with water, or the container with water, and stuck the brush in and started shaving with that." I was like, that's not what I told you to do at all." And I said, so we went over it again. And the next day, he came in and he said, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And he says, can you make me a video? I said, I sure can. And he says, well, I know, I really need you to do that. I said, I'm not doing that. And he says, well, but I can't figure it out. And I said, there's plenty of videos on YouTube. He says, yeah, but I'd rather you do it. So I said, all right, you know what? Fine. I saw, you know what? I'll do up an instructional video for you, which I believe is still up on the channel. And I think it was actually the first video I ever did. And I said, I'll do an instructional video on how to make a lather. I said, I'm going to leave it up for 2 days and I'm deleting it. This is not something I want to do. And I said, I'm serious. And he says, oh, no, that's fine. So I put it up, and he says, the next day I said, you watch this? He says, well, I didn't get a chance to. Can you leave it up another day or two? Fine. So I left it up, and he watched it. He says, yeah, I got a chance. It worked really well. Thank you very much. I said, okay. And I went home and I went to go delete it that night, and there was comments on it. And I was like, who the hell would comment on this? Who sees this? And I looked at it, and I think there was 200 views on the thing already. And it's only been a couple of days, and I was like, wow. And I was a nobody. I didn't really know anybody in wet shaving at all. And certainly nobody knew me. And I looked at it, and there was a comment on there saying, hey, I really like your video, and you know, you should do more. And so I responded to it and said, well, yeah, I don't remember who it was. And I asked, well, what do you want me to, what should I do? And they said, well, I'd like you to review a soap. And I said, okay, I guess so. And so I looked at my shave. Then I probably had 3, 4 soaps at the time, and I grabbed one and did a review for it. I don't even remember what it was. And apparently people liked it. They commented. They sent me emails or messages, direct messages, and asked me to what I thought about various products. And I happened to have some of the products that they were asking about, and so I reviewed those, and I did some more and more, and it just kept growing. I never did delete that video. I said I was dead set against leaving, and it just grew, and people would send me messages asking me to review stuff. I've had people. I had some guy that really liked the channel a lot. He ended up sending me a bunch of stuff because he wanted to see me do videos on it, which I did. And it was just, it kind of grew into where I wanted to eventually just start talking about my own experiences and my own views on things, because as I watched other videos, I would see people saying things about certain products, and I said, I don't agree with that, or I don't think that that's really that, I don't think that that's true. And finally I said, instead of just commenting and complaining in the groups and talking, quote unquote, behind somebody's back, as it were, which I didn't want to do, and I don't. I just made a YouTube video. So this is what I think of it. Like it or not, I don't care, but this is what I think of it. And that's really kind of the basics of how it came about.
Well, that's awesome. That's funny how you were dead set on, I am not going to do this. This is ridiculous. And then you kind of got pulled into it by the high amount of interest in it. That's I guess a case of you more or less getting dragged down the rabbit hole rather than diving down it or falling down it.
Kind of. And then, yeah, but that did have you're right. It did had now that I think about it, had quite the impact on it, because I had already started to go down the rabbit hole to a certain degree. And, but when that really hit, I mean, I had somebody sent me a box full of stuff from Maggots, and I'm looking at it, open up, and say, wow, I didn't even know half this stuff existed. This is great. And I was like, oh, and then I just started buying. I bought everything I can get my hands on. I bought it left and right. Didn't matter. I was like, I'll try that. I can't stand this scent. I don't care. I'll try it anyway. I'll buy it anyway. And the same with razors, and the same with the blades. Anything I could get my hands on that I would wanted to try, I would do. And it was it was pretty crazy. But it was fun. I couldn't stop it, it's funny because I would look at certain things and I would say, well, I guess there are far worse addictions to have out there than buying shaving products.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I mean, there's a lot more expensive hobbies to have. Like
sure.
I still am a bit of a gun enthusiast, but I kind of stopped buying and selling trading guns so much because buying and selling and trading shaving soaps and brushes and razors was a hell of a lot cheaper.
Less red tape too.
Yeah, a lot less red tape. You don't have to do a 4473 for a puck of soap. That's not a thing.
Right. No, I would totally agree.
So,
and it's definitely, like I said, less red tape. And although some might argue, depending on what aspect you get into, it's probably can be just as expensive as firearms. Depending on what you get into, especially with some of the straight razors I've seen.
right. Well, I mean, I guess what makes it cheaper is that you have a significantly less expensive sense of satisfaction when you get that like retail therapy, you know,
Yep.
because a $20 bar of soap is a lot less expensive than a $600 handgun. So
You're absolutely right. Absolutely, absolutely right. And it's and there is, so like you said, retail therapy. There's something to be said for when you get that box and you're kind of like, especially when you order from a shaving company that has a plethora of products. Not to say anything wrong with ordering from an artisan direct, but when you order from like Maggards or the Razor Company or something to that effect, you can get a bunch of different stuff. Not just soaps. You get the aftershave, the blade. You can just get, and you get, it's like Christmas. It really, you open it up and it's like, wow, this is great.
yeah. Yeah, it is great stuff. So the reason I brought you on here is to talk about you've been doing this a lot longer than I have. I've only been doing this since 2017. I've only been wet shaving since 2017. I've only been on YouTube since 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, for about 6 or 7 years at least. What would you say are some of the positive things and negative things that have happened to this? I hate to use the term shaving community because I don't think that properly describes it. We are a hobbyist group. Let's be real about what this is. And what do you think are some of the good things that have happened and some of the less healthy things that have happened in the 6 or 7 years that you've been doing this?
Um. Well, yeah. When I first started, there were only a handful of artisans, and a handful of good artisans at that. There were a bunch of artisans that were not so good. And I think it was, I mean, it was a new hobby. It was not a hobby that had been a hobby before that. People have wet shaved for years, obviously. But I think as far as it becoming a hobby, that was kind of a new thing. And everybody would just, they were all in. The videos, the contests, the giveaways, the pass arounds, the samples. I mean, it was just the meetups. Um, and I think the hobby almost overran itself. Okay, like so there everybody wanted in on every certain aspect. The YouTube really exploded. I mean, everybody who had a camera was making a channel, and and it took a couple of years. It wasn't like that for it was stayed kind of status quo for a good 4 or 5, 6 years even, and then um, more and more artists became available, or excuse me, became there was more and more good artisans and less bad artisans. So more and more good product was being released. So the market was starting to get saturated. People, it was, they were losing interest in certain contests and stuff like that because it was the stuff wasn't so coveted because you could pretty much pick it up from anywhere for any price.
Right.
And I think that the hobby grew very fast and very large, and it kind of in every aspect of it was oversaturated. Like I said, the YouTube videos became oversaturated. There was too many people on YouTube to keep up with as far as channels are concerned. Um, there are groups. I mean, God, there's got to be hundreds of shave groups on Facebook alone,
Yeah,
let alone Instagram.
Facebook is nuts.
Yeah, and so then you've got, and then the soaps, really took off, and I think that was a good thing in the sense that of developing a basic product because when shave soaps first came out, they were glycerin based, and they weren't, in my opinion, glycerin based is not that good. I don't like it at all, and it's grown. The base of basic shave soap has grown so much, and I think honestly, I think what really hurt it, in my opinion, a negative to it was there were too many people that got too good at making shave soaps. You had people like Peter Charkalis and A&E. He really set the bar as far as shave soap bases. He's put a ton of money and a ton of work a ton of time into his base, and he created basically this just ultimate base. And this was even before Kaizen, and he just made this great base that was just fantastic, and everybody started comparing their stuff to his. And I saw a lot of artisans out there who had really good bases anyway start to get overshadowed by it, and they kind of fell off people's radars. And it was too bad, because they really did have a great product, but they weren't at his level, right? And eventually, it's funny because I was just thinking about this the other day, and I think I was talking to somebody about this. He set the bar for a good couple of years after that, and especially with the release of Kaizen 2. But then once he hit Kaizen 2, as far as, and this is just my opinion, right? But that was pretty much it. Like, you could only make a soap so slick, and you can only make a base so good. I mean, how much slicker do you need shave soap to be? And it got to the point where people said, "Wow, his Kaizen 2 is so great." And I said, "What the hell was wrong with all his other stuff?" I said, I liked
Yep.
all his other stuff. It worked great for me. I thought it was great. I think he makes a great product. He always has. And I think what happened was he set that bar, and so many other artisans, new and existing, started upping their game into that. So now, what you're faced with today is there's a whole bunch of people out there who have cracked that, for lack of a better word, the code, and they all have great bases. I can think of 3 or 4 people that are the equivalent to his base right now. He's got a great base. He does. I love his soap, but he's not the only one that makes that type of soap. There are other people out there that make a product, like 345. They came out the gate with a soap practically just like his. Say base wise, it was just as good.
Right.
And he's no longer, in my opinion, the one to strive for or to beat, because everybody's there. Or not everybody, but a lot of people are already there. What it's coming down to now, and this is where I think a lot of the artisans tend to fall short, is it's no longer about base. The products are all there. People crack the code. Vegan tallow, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Vegan soaps perform just as good as tallow. People argue with me on that, but I don't care. That's how I feel. Um, it's about scent. And I think Jason Rudman said that. He called that a couple of years back. He said, we're reaching a I forget the term he used for it, but he said where everything is just kind of, all the products are going to be becoming equal, and this is really going to be about scent. And you're
Right.
going to start seeing people fall off and go out of business because they can't do it, or they're tired of doing it, or the products have gotten really expensive, which they have. And that's what killed a lot of the other artisans. They just like, it's not fun for me anymore. I'm not spending the money to do it, which I understand that. But a
Right.
lot of these artisans that are out there, it's no longer about bass. I feel like I want to scream like, enough with the bass, leave it alone. It's about scent. And you know, you can make a lime scent or a sandalwood scent, but let's face it, those are basic scents that those aren't hobbyist scents. You're going to get people that'll say, "Well, I really like a good sandalwood." They'll find 345 or even A&E, and they'll get their sandalwood scent, and they say thank you very much, and then you won't see or hear from them again until they're done with it. Because they're not, those type of scents. I don't know anybody that buys a lime scent from every single artisan. How many lime scents do you need?
Yeah, that's not
So
a thing.
right, so you have your basics, and those are what I call the safe scents. And I said that to an artisan a couple years back, and it's funny because that artisan, if you ask them now, they tell you that, I don't take offense to that. I told them that their scents were safe, and they didn't like that at all. But and I was the response I got was, well, but you like cologne based. Those are the safest scents out there. Well, yes and no. I mean, they're safe because they've already been introduced. Why do you think Sterling does so well? Look at their line. they've got the limes, they've got the lavender and the sandalwood to satisfy their non-hobbyists. That's great, and they've got a good base, and they're reasonably priced. But they've got a boatload of cologne-based scents. They're all dupes. And they're like that because that's what people go for, because they're new, they're exciting, and these companies that are out there, the brand name companies that are, YSL and things like that, that are making all these really expensive scents. People buy, people, not a lot of people can get them because they're $350, but you get a company like Sterling who'll dupe it, and you're boom, I'll buy that, and that's what I do because it's new, it's different. I see somebody come up with a sandalwood. They're like, "Yeah, I added lime to it and some pineapple." I said, "I'm good. I don't care. That does nothing for me." There's only so many ways you can mix sandalwood.
Right.
It. But you look for all those colognes. You go to like Macy's or something like that. You're not looking at no one's selling a sandalwood cologne. I mean, I'm sure there is, but no one's. They're not combining sandalwood, lavender, and lime and coming up with these great scents. You really got to crack the code in the scent. And I feel like the artisans in general have not, and that's where they're hurting. And a lot of them say, "Well, I don't want to dupe. I want original." Okay, that's fine, but you really got to step up your game with that. And Peter Chakalis has put a ton of. I think he notices that, and I think he's putting a lot of his effort into that part. He's got a great base. He knows that, but he's always coming up with something new scent wise and throwing it out to the VIP forum. I don't know if you're part of that or not, but he's
I
always
am.
putting it out to there. Yeah, and he's always coming up with something new. A lot of these other artisans are, they're at home and they're doing the best they can, but they're not cracking that scent code like they cracked the base code.
Right.
They came up with a good base, but you base is nothing if it doesn't appeal to the hobbyist. That's where you're going to make your money as the hobbyist. And unfortunately, like myself, I flock to places like Sterling because they've got plenty of dupes that I've never smelled before. And because either I can't afford to even go near it, or I just can't get to the store all the time, or if I see something that I think might be good, I can go to Macy's and say, spray that on a card. Yep, that smells good. Thank you. Bye. And I go to Sterling and buy it buy the whole line if I want to. And a lot of these artisans are not, they're not good with that part, and it's too bad because I think that's what's killing some of them. They've got a great customer service. They got great base. They've got a couple of scents, but they're not great scents. They're good. Somebody, I don't know if you're familiar with Joe Caton from Black Mountain Shaving. That guy is a genius when it comes to scent. That's all he does. He focuses on scent and scent alone. And some of the stuff that guy has come up with, I'm like, how do you do that? He sent me a sample where he says, smell this, tell me what you think. Holy cow, this is amazing. I love this. Because he puts his time and effort, and I'm not saying the other artisans don't, but he was able to crack that code of coming up with different, unique, and trendy scents. They like Creed Aventus, that came out and everybody loved that scent. I'm one of them. But I got 3 different artisans of soap and aftershave from 3 different companies of Creed Aventus. There's only so many of those. I'm not buying another one. I don't care who comes out with it.
Yeah.
Somebody came out with one, and they were like, "Oh, my next one's going to be. I want a good Creed Aventus." I said, "Why? Why? That's been done
Yeah.
1,000
It's been
times.
done to death.
Yeah, do something. There's hundreds of colognes out there that are getting out that people can't access because they can't afford it. Grab some of those, get the dupe, and put it out there. That's why Sterling does so well. That's why I've got a boatload of their scents because they can work the scent. It's almost like it's not even. You don't have to have the Peter Chakalis base either. You don't have to. There's plenty of distance between Peter Chakalis and a glycerin based soap. There's all kinds of stuff in the middle that are just as great shaves that do really well, but it comes down to scent. And if the scent sucks, I won't buy. I can tell you I won't buy it. Peter Chakalis can come to me and give me 3 soaps, and I smell them all, and I'm like, dude, this stuff sucks. I don't really want it. thank you. I love your base. I have 3 of your stuff, or I have more than that. But I won't buy it if the scent isn't there. And that's. I think he's putting a lot of time and effort into that. And people like Joe Caden who really crack the code on that. I think it's a very difficult area for artisans to be able to achieve that trend of constant new stuff. It's got to be a tough area. I couldn't do it, but I think that's what's killing a lot of the artisans. So that's kind of a negative where the hobby started off as all about making a good basic product or a base or a good product in general. And once that got there, now what do we do? Well,
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. Um, one of the things that I'm seeing that's kind of discouraging is that some artisans are still trying to play the base game. Like
right.
like everybody already dropped their mics and walked off the stage. Like at a certain point, it's time to accept that it's as good as it needs to be.
I
Like
agree.
and then to your point, like I feel like because lately I've been kind of reverting back to what I call legacy soaps. And that's like a legacy soap is basically a term that I came up with to refer to basically anything that predates mainstream artisan soap making. So that's your DR Harris, your Tobbs, your Cella, your
Yep.
Tabac, Leah, things like that.
Sure.
And I've been kind of reverting back to that because I feel like all that artisans are doing are just repeating each other. Like whatever made somebody money before, it's like, well, I'm going to do this now. It's like how many Creed Aventus dupes does the market need? Like
I
like
agree.
at a certain point, some of these up and coming artisans have to just say no to that and be like, no, I'm going to do
Right.
something else. Like I've been trying my damnedest to get a couple different artisans to do Killian Roses on Ice,
I
but
don't
nobody
know
wants
that
to
one.
touch it because it's an unproven scent because it's not selling like hotcakes at some other artisan's website. It's just like, where's the creativity? There's no sense
Right.
of creativity anymore. Everybody just wants to do the safe stuff.
This right. The
Yeah,
safe
like
sense.
you said.
Exactly.
So
You know, and polos is another one. A lot of people would like to see. Oh, this is a polo green or this is a polo. I'm like crying out loud. You know, polo. I get it. You want to do vintage and to something that's maybe how much to something that's not no longer in production. Okay, fine, but there's you got to do the newer stuff. If you're gonna do something that's that it just hit the market, not something that's been out for 4 or 5 years.
yeah,
But yeah, what
and
that's why I guess I don't make soaps.
yeah, I mean, and speaking of legacy soaps, I think it's safe to say that it's almost unacceptable to do videos with that. Like I've been noticing that when I do some of the British stuff like DR Harris and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
Tobbs occasionally, people don't want to watch it because it's
Nope.
yesterday's news. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's yesteryear's news to them. Like early on in this hobby, that stuff, the people would eat that up. You could shave with anything and people would eat it up. Now, if you
Yep.
try to use I guess a corporate shaving product or a legacy soap, like people just won't even give it the time of day, it seems like anymore.
No, not if that's the center of attention. If you're featuring or you really want to talk about a specific piece of hardware, razor or a bowl or something like that, you kind of have to. If you really want to give that product some video time, you have to kind of sneak it in like that. Here's this bowl, but I'm using this for soap. It's just Todd Sandalwood, which is a great soap, but it you have to kind of like throw it under the radar, just to get it some video time. Because, like you said, somebody you see a video, somebody says this is what I reviewed, they're like, yeah, pass, gone.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's all the bad.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have to admit, there's an insane amount of variety, the likes of which we could not even have imagined 5 or 6 years ago. Like 4 years ago, if you'd have told me that there was this much going on in the wet shaving industry, I would have told you were crazy.
Yep.
For better or for worse, I think a lot of potential artisans kind of, I use the term, they kind of turned into sharks and they started smelling blood in the water and they saw
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity. And so now you have just this overwhelming market saturation to the point where, and I mentioned this on a previous podcast video where I'm legitimately concerned that we're going to have this almost housing bubble type kind of collapse in this wet shaving industry where a bunch of artisans are going to go out of business very, very fast and very, very suddenly. And it's going to be sad to see that. But if it happens, it's because a lot of these soap makers are not experimenting with unique scents, whether it's an original scent, which I would personally prefer, or whether it's, a cologne dupe of something that just hit the market and it's selling like hotcakes. It's like at a certain point, you're going to have to do the work. You can't just keep doing what's been selling for 10 years because it's going to get old for people.
Yep, and I would agree, and I think you're starting to see that already. There's been, quite a few artisans that have gone out of business that, and I think there are a couple of different factors there. I think to your point that, they just can't grab the scent. They can't get a handle on that. I think a lot of it has to do with product availability and cost. That's another thing too. Is like people keep citing, well, I can't afford to make this anymore. Well, if you dial your base back, and I say back, and it's not really dialing it back because it's not bad, but if you use some of the lesser expensive ingredients you were using 3 years ago when your base was fine, and focus more on the scent, you might see your sales change. You know what I mean? I that's one of the things I keep using in legacy soaps, as it were, which this isn't mass produced, but there was a company, Reef Point, that was out a number of years ago. They closed their doors. I'm not really sure why. It had nothing to do with the market or anything. This was long before they went under, long before that. But they make a fantastic base, and I still have 2 of their soaps. And every time, it's a great, great base, great soap, and it's a great scent in the 2 that I have. And I was very sad to see them go under because I really liked their stuff. But that's just it. People they're striving for that $1 million base, and it just, at some point you got to stop yourself and say, okay, this is getting, the base is costing more. I can't focus on the scent. Well, you're sacrificing one for the other, and you're gonna lose eventually.
Right. I mean, in order to exist in that space without constantly pushing the envelope, you pretty much have to be an established name. You either have to be Katie's Bubbles or Sterling to get away with that. Otherwise, if you come out with just basic scents like lime and sandalwood, and you have what would have been a great base 5 years ago, but it's an okay base now, like, you don't stand a chance.
Nope. You'll be done in a week.
Yep. And unfortunately, like, I wish it didn't have to be that way, but that's what the market has, I guess, evolved to, is this, you have to have just this unbelievable soap base, and you have to have really complex, really unique scents to be able to get anything done. And like I said recently, it kind of, the over commercialization of it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And that's what kind of made me run back screaming to some of the old school stuff that's always been there and always will be there, because they tend to just be quiet and let their products speak for themselves. And I think a lot of people forget how well that, like, DR Harris, for example, that product speaks for itself. It does. It's, if it were that bad, they wouldn't still be in business. Obviously, they're doing something right, or they wouldn't still be here.
Right. I mean, look at Parasso. But they've been around. I'm pretty sure it's been 100 years, and they, I don't think, to my knowledge, they haven't touched their base, and they're still running strong.
Because they're a household name at this point.
Right. So and it's funny because they're the ones who all their stuff is the safe scents that we talk about, but they can get away with that because they're well established. Like you made that point earlier. And I
Yeah.
think that's exactly, I think you're right on. I really do. It's too bad because I really like some of these artisans that have gone, have closed their doors, and they've closed, and it's not all been because of lack of business. Some of them, circumstances change, life changes, and I get that. And you know, you got to put your family first, that sort of thing. It's just too bad because some of these people I really really liked, and I wanted. They're still in the hobby, but just not as much. But I loved coming home and jumping in that Facebook group, and they were always there. You know, they're always there with a whole bunch of comments, great comments. You know, and yeah, they're not so much anymore. That's too bad. You know,
Well,
just not quite.
not only that, but I think the Facebook groups, a lot of them have just turned into a dumpster fire. I hate to say this. This hobbyist group that we are a part of has its fair share of cliques and factions, just like any other hobbyist group. Like, as much as I would like to
Yep.
admit we're unique that way, we're not unique that way.
No.
And I think
No.
increasingly people are going back to their metaphorical corners and are getting sick and tired of being yes men. And so now what I'm seeing on um, social media, on Facebook and on Instagram, and to a certain extent even on YouTube, is a lot of just these bicker fests, uh, bicker fests and backstabs, and airing out other people's laundry that's just none of your business, and ratting people out and companies out, and it's just like, come on, people.
Right.
Like,
I would agree.
and there are certain people that have gotten out of this hobby because they just got fed up with all the drama. Like I'm still here in spite of the fact that there's this toxicity going on. I think there's still more good than bad, but I can understand why a lot of people just pulled chalks and were like, I'm out.
Yep. Yeah, and I would agree. I think that there are times when it's just, and that's not including the trolls. Sometimes you get these people that have nothing to do with the hobby, and they find their way in, and they just decide to, hey, let's start a fire and watch this happen.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
But I think that sometimes I think people get, it's almost like they get so angry over a particular situation, and they'll go on a YouTube video or in a group and say, you know what, don't buy from this person. I think that's a good thing to do with the buyer beware if you're dealing with a private sale with somebody and they really kind of screwed you. But if you had a bad experience with a mainstream kind of, like, say for Katie's Bubbles, for whatever reason, it didn't go in your eyes very well. He's already established. He's already got plenty of fans. What good is it going to come for you to go into a group and start trashing him or his company? Why? I mean, you think you're gonna, all of a sudden he's gonna either call you and say, "Boy, I've turned over a new leaf. You're absolutely right. I was completely wrong," or do you think you're just gonna you're running your mouth is gonna close his company? Neither one is gonna happen. Just deal with it. You had a bad experience, as you said earlier. There is a ton of companies. Move on to somebody else, and just that's it. Why waste your time going in there saying how much you hate the guy or the company? Chris is great. I love Chris. I don't have any issues with him, but I know there are people that do. What? So then don't buy from them. Go somewhere else. Why waste? It's just I don't have time for that crap either. I'll start to see it coming. I'm like, I'm good. I'll either leave the group or or I'll leave it just for the night or whatever. But
Yeah. I
yeah, I'm
mean,
good.
a few years ago, I was that guy a couple times. For some reason I thought it was going to do somebody a favor to put somebody on blast on social media when things didn't go according to plan. Well, there's a reason why we ask people to handle it at the lowest level possible. If you have a legitimate problem, you have an aftershave that showed up in the mail and it was leaking all over the place, or you have a cracked soap tub, or the soap melted in the heat and fell out, or you ordered X and you got Y, that's a situation where it's like, I got an idea. Why don't you talk to them,
Right.
before you go shooting your mouth off? And again, I made that stupid mistake a couple times, and finally it got to where, honestly, I was so ashamed of myself that I pretty much left Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, okay, it's time for me to just walk away from this because the temptation is just too much, and I've already burned too many bridges with too many people anyway. So it's just like it's time to just leave. And maybe I'm overplaying that. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, but I think I pretty much burned my fuse up a little too much on Facebook, and over time, I learned that lesson. It's and one of the other things I learned is that how you react to a bad situation makes a lot of difference. Like whether it's working with a shaving soap artisan or the cable company, if you call up Direct TV and you're just cussing and bitching them out, well, do you think they're going to have any desire to help you? They're going to throw up barriers so fast it's not even funny. It's like, why are you yelling at them? They didn't do it to you.
I agree.
It's just like, or the way I can kind of move that over is like a lot of these retailers, particularly, it's not a one person operation. You've got 10 employees, and the person who took the order might not be the person who packed the box.
Right.
And so there's an inherent fundamental disconnect that comes from having multiple employees, and stuff gets missed. And if you don't approach that situation politely, then you're not going to get the kind of, correction or I don't know what the word is. You're not going to get that problem corrected quite so easily if you're, mouthing off and stuff like that.
I would agree, and that's another plus that Sterling has is honestly his customer service. There were times I don't know, I never had an order get screwed up. I've gotten doubles of things that I didn't pay for, and like I paid for one and I got two, and I would reach out to him, or I'd say, I'd either would give one away, or I'd kind of be like, I might say something to somebody, and you think he meant to do this, and it happens, and okay, there's no sense in going, wow, what an idiot, he can't count or whatever. That's not the case. Maybe he's being nice. Maybe he thought, hey, I'm trying to promote my product or whatever. The few times that I've had questions on something, and I've asked, hey, when's this coming out again? Which I'm sure he gets all the time. It's almost like he responds just like he's never been asked that before, which is great. Which to me is great because I don't feel like I'm bothering him. It doesn't. I don't feel like it's the umpteenth time, which it probably is, that he's heard that question. Am I making sense? It's not. I'm not digging him. I'm saying I like how he handles his customer service. It makes a huge deal. And the fact that you can contact him. I've had the opposite effect where like you said, you have to be polite. And I had a custom order done on something once, and I reached out and I said, look, it's been a month. This is what happened to it. Is it something I did? This is what's going on. And I got a lot of, it was rectified-ish, but there was a lot of tude. And I was like, wow, man, I'm being as nice as I possibly can. And I didn't air it. I didn't put it on YouTube. I was just like, dude, hey, tell me if I messed this thing up. Did I do this? And, and no, well, you had to have done this, but I didn't. Well, fine. I'll fix it. It's like, well, okay. Well, but like you said, you're going to get artisans sometimes that are going to be like that. But most of them, in my opinion, in my experience, are not like that. They're super nice. Will from Barrister, man, he's another one. I know. I'm pretty sure he's got way more than just himself involved in that now, but he wasn't like that before. And when it was just him and a couple of people, and I commented about something one day that didn't work for me, but I was like, it will work for other people if they like X, Y, and Z. It wasn't a dig. I was just saying for me, and it wasn't even. I think I just did it was a review, like a hey, you bought this product, comment on it. And I did. I was like, hey, I think it burned my face, but I think that's because I'm oversensitive and such. And he responded almost immediately. And I told him, I said, this was not a dig. I said, I think you grabbed a great product. I just happened to grab the wrong scent for me. I've never used anything like this, and it bothered me. And he said, well, let me send you this instead. And you don't have to do that. But he did. And because I think I handled it, even though I said it wasn't for me, I handled it in a nice, respectable way. I wasn't saying, wow, this product really sucks. Not at all. I was saying it in an approachable way, I think. And I think that goes a long ways on both sides, not, artisans and the purchasers.
Yeah, politeness goes a long way. It really does.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let's start to wrap this up.
Okay.
I always ask everybody, this is another generic question I always ask everybody, what do you have for parting words of wisdom for the rest of this hobbyist group of ours? New shavers, old shavers, what have you learned that you can pass on to people?
I would say, in my opinion, I'd say probably before you get crazy and start buying everything around you, try to narrow down what you like. Like even if it is some of the safe scents we talk about, like you're a sandalwood person, maybe start there. And you might save yourself a little bit of money, especially if you go down the rabbit hole like we've all done, and it's fun. I don't have any regrets. But if you if you figure out what you like first and then kind of shop based on that, that way you're not kind of like, I don't know if I'm making sense. That way you're not blindly grabbing. Well, I like the way that sounds. One of the first soaps I bought was Motherfucker, and I bought it from Razor Rock because I liked the name of it. I had no idea what it smelled like, and it's actually one of my favorite scents.
Yeah,
but try, that's what I would say. Find what you like first.
Yeah, don't throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks.
Exactly.
Make sure you have an idea of what you want and a plan in mind before you start making purchases.
Yep.
Well, Chad, I want to thank you for coming on. I will go ahead and put your YouTube channel in the description of my video, and I will put your card up here. It should have already been towards the beginning of the video. You'll see a card up there. Go ahead and backtrack and click on that. And hey, Chad, thank you for your service. Everybody tells me thank you for mine, but fewer people tell the police thank you for your service, because you guys do a public service that's a lot closer to home than I am. So
I'm happy to do it.
So thanks for that. Now, it was a great pleasure having you on and seeing kind of what you've experienced since then. I think we're all kind of seeing the same stuff, and there's some good, there's some bad, but I hope everybody got something out of this that was worthwhile.
I would agree. I hope so also.
I want to thank everybody for watching, and until next time, this is Soap Thing telling you, as always, shave like you mean it. Thanks for watching.